Farmer Resilience. We got Kevin Chee in the house, part 4 of nematodes of the soil food web. So Kevin, without further ado, let's have you take over.
Awesome. So this is going to be our last section of soil microbes. And it's important to understand that all of these different base educational parts is really to understand when we're looking at samples what we're looking at. So that's kind of the true importance to what I've been doing for the last 4 sessions, 3 sessions, 4th sessions today. And it just really helps understand so that we all kind of can be on the same page to a degree when I start doing slide samples of soil, compost, whatever I'm looking at. So nematodes, also a very fun creature to look at under the microscope. They help regulate the lower life forms in soil. They also self-regulate their numbers as the predatory types will consume other nematodes. Some people think that nematodes in general are all bad, but really there's only one type of nematode that actually causes damage to plants, which is this guy right here. And we'll talk more about him shortly. The rest are all beneficial. So let's go over. Oh, am I not sharing?
Yeah. Thank you.
Let's see. Present. Share screen. You guys see that now?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So soil nematodes, are they good? Are they bad? How can we tell? So these are essentially the 5 main types of soil nematodes. First, we'll go over the first one, are bacterial feeders. These are identified by the wide mouths on the opening of the front of their bodies. They have a double pumping structure to the front part of their bodies. This is to basically, as they start swimming around, which they're usually quite active, they start swimming around and they use this pumping structure to vacuum the different types of bacteria into their mouths. They're very particular of the types of bacteria that they like, which is different from protozoa. So that's why it gives us a bit of diversity when it comes to the types of nutrients that they will waste right by the roots of your plants. There's a cylindrical chamber just behind the front of their mouth, which helps us identify them a little bit better because they're moving around so much. We have to just try to catch this cylinder that we can see besides this double pumping structure. Sometimes their mouths will be a little frilly on the front. These are also the most common that we see in soil systems. So if we're seeing a bunch of different nematodes in a sample, most of them are going to be bacterial feeders. Next, we have the fungal feeders. They have more of a narrow mouth, not quite all that frilliness on the front. They have a single pumping structure to them. So usually we'll see this dual pumping structure in the bacteria. We see the single pumping structure for the fungal feeders. In front of the pumping structure, we'll have a spear just inside their mouth. And that's used to stab inside the bodies of fungi and used to extract the internal plasma that fungi is producing. The spear can also be slightly larger, almost like a knife-like. And these fungal feeders are usually a little less common in most soil systems, but we will see these. They can also get quite large as well. I've seen some very large fungal feeders in soil systems. So these are the bad guys. These are the root feeders. This is the only type that is detrimental to your plants. We see these by this real narrow mouth structure on the front. They have a single pumping structure to their digestive system. And then they have this single spear that will have multiple or a cluster of nodules at the base of it. These nodules are just distinctive, and it mostly stops the spear from going any further into the root's outer surface. We can see one right here. So this is from a shot from me taking soil samples of a project that I was doing research on, and you can see this cluster of nodules right behind its initial spear here. And so we don't want to see these in soil. These are detrimental to our roots. But what we want to do to take care of these is have more diversity of the kinds of nematodes we have in our soil to consume these guys, because these guys are on the smaller size and our predatory are much larger. Next, we'll go into predatory. So the predatory nematodes will have a very wide mouth opening, and then they have this large tooth structure, which is used to basically just chomp up food. Behind that, they have this large chamber. It's like an empty void that allows them to pull other types of nematodes. It could be bacterial, it could be a root feeder, it could be a fungal feeder, because predatory nematodes are the largest in their types. And so they will grab another nematode and they'll just start pulling it into its body, into this empty chamber here, and start consuming it. These are definitely beneficial when it comes to the types of nematodes that we want in our soil systems. The predatory nematodes, you can actually purchase predatory nematodes. They do sell them commercially, and they will help kind of clean up the soil from any detrimental guys that you have swimming around down there. And then the last type that we have here is the omnivorous, which again have a wide mouth structure. Omnivorous meaning that they'll eat lots of different things. They'll eat fungi, they'll eat bacteria, possibly, if they're large enough, other nematodes. They just kind of eat everything, maybe even protozoa. More research needs to be done to know exactly what they'll eat at any given time. So they have this wide mouth structure. They have this large knife-like, similar to the fungal feeders, no pumping structures internally, just this chamber behind their mouth to start taking in all those things that they chew up. They're typically larger in overall size, similar to the predatories, but they also are beneficial. They're not going to eat your roots. They're going to eat everything else around your roots. And so it's definitely important to have them in the soil. So the nematodes, they do contribute to overall diversity in predatory organisms. What they will typically do is reduce numbers of bacteria in most cases, because our bacteria nematodes are the most common. They are looking for different types of bacteria than, say, the protozoa are. And so when you have different types of bacteria, which are pulling in different types of macro and micronutrients into their own bodies and then being consumed by other predatory species of different types of nematodes and different types of protozoa, then you have this whole buffet, really, of nutrients that's available to your plants right at the roots, because that's where all the activity is. The exudates come down, the sugars come down. That's produced during the day from chlorophyll production. It goes down into the roots. It creates all those carbohydrates, those released to all those lower life forms. They get fed, and then all the predators come in. They start consuming, and all that waste product becomes soluble nutrients right at the roots of your plants. So they additionally contribute to soil ecosystems, as they are going to consume those lower life forms that suit themselves, which differ from other predators like the protozoa. This separate class of consumers creates a whole nother level of different types of nutrient waste that contributes to that buffet that we talked about right at the roots. So keeping an eye on who is present in the soil around your plants, you're tending to, watering to, and caring for is important to understand, for the sake of removing our guesswork out of our processes. It's also a form of diagnosis we can perform in real time at any point. We all can monitor and be aware of what conditions are good and not so good for our plants with just some simple checks under the microscope. And what I want to point out, why any of this is important, is that once you understand these skills, you have an understanding of the mechanism that plants use in nature, which is essentially a system that's already been set up from years of how this system has evolved to generate nutrients for every kind of plant around the world. This is the same mechanism around the globe. So what we use in North America could be used in South America, could be used in Africa or any other continent around the world. The only one that we don't really know much about is Antarctica, which Dr. Lane kind of attributes being to in every other continent studying this research. So most of us consultants, we are essentially learning the same thing because we're all growing plants which are using the same mechanism around the world. So you have to have this base understanding of what all these little creatures are under the soil when we're looking at samples. So it becomes clear once we start doing our assessments of those samples, how healthy it is based on what we see. And so that is the fourth presentation of essentially the microbes. And then hopefully as we can go month to month, we can start looking at slides and you guys can have a little bit more understanding to what we're looking at. And maybe I can get some of your guys' samples that are close by of what things look like and how we can kind of assess and help you guys figure out what's going on with your soil, figure out those issues, bring the life back to the soil, which most soil systems, unless they are fully productive and you have high organic matter, which is really important to keeping those soil microbes within the soil, they have to have a home to be there to start decomposing, and that's when they're present. And so being able to understand at least the base mechanism to how this all works is really the true reason why we went through step 1 to step 4 today.
Awesome, Kevin. I mean, nematodes are basic, but not basic. It seems like it's
there's so many thousands of different types of species, but they fall within these 5 categories.
Gotcha. And what's the best way to put them in your compost if you're making compost at home?
So if you're making compost, the best thing to do is making sure that you don't have anything that has any dewormers, any antibiotics that you're adding. If you're adding horse manure, livestock manure, make sure that none of your animals are being treated with any type of antibiotic type treatments that you're doing for them. If they have any kind of those issues, you want to make sure that none of your animals are being treated with that. You want to make sure none of the green material, brown material, anything that you have is not sprayed for any kind of herbicide, fungicide, or pesticide. You want as much organic diversity to add to that, and you will end up with nematodes.
Okay. So it's not something you have to worry about bringing in. It just create the conditions.
You can, if you're having a specific issue and your compost doesn't have a ton of nematodes, or you were just lacking in overall numbers, you can buy them commercially. Most grow stores sell like little packets that are little wet sponges, and you can see there's just a bunch of nematodes in there. If you can visually see the nematodes in there, they're quite large. Those are typically your predatories. And there's a method of extracting them, which we learn in the soil food web, because predatory nematodes are denser, so they sink to the bottom faster when we're doing our extraction methods. And so it's just an easy way for us to tell how to extract those out. And there's a lot of companies that have perfected that.
So one of the questions, so last time you were here, we talked about protozoa and how nutrient cycling. How would you compare protozoa to nematodes in the soil food web?
In the soil food web, I'd say they're the largest microscopic predator that you're going to find in soil systems. They're also the most active, other than flagellates and ciliates. But the biggest difference is that when you have, if you look at food chains just in the wild, there's going to be larger apex predators and there's going to be smaller apex predators. Or not apex predators, but other predators. So you're going to have your apex, and then you have all your predators in subsequent lines. And they're all looking for different kinds of foods. And so when you have your largest predators looking for different types of foods, the waste that happens from those nematodes is giving you a different batch of nutrients for your plants. And protozoa are after a different type of bacteria, where there's so many hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of different types of species of bacteria. The protozoa are after a specific group of those. The nematodes are after a completely separate and specific group. And that's also depending on what species of bacterial nematode you're looking at. So when you have all these different types of protozoa species that are in the same class, and then you have all the different types of bacterial nematodes that are within the bacterial class, they're still looking for different stuff. And so when they're consuming all these billions and billions of bacteria by the roots of your plants in different forms, they're taking little bits of all the different macro and then trace minerals, and they're adding it to the plant. So you're not having to add more nutrition, or you're not having to go buy something at the store and add something to your plant here and there. When you have really good soil structure with all of these different characters in play, then you don't have to worry about malnutrition or an issue with cell structure in this particular plant or this particular plant. And so you're just giving your plant that much better opportunity to have much more vigorous growth and healthier produce by adding as much nutrient content to that soil structure by having all these different people, all these different characters.
Gotcha. Okay. So that makes sense, everything you're saying. So next time we have you on here, we'll basically tie everything we've learned from bacteria, fungi, protozoa, and now nematodes, put all together, and we could look at some soil samples, you think?
Yeah, we can check out some soil samples, look at some of the compost that I use. I'm currently doing a bit of my own self-research study where I'm using a deep water culture hydroponic system and seeing if I can take what we're talking about and extracting all those different microbes and putting them into a liquid structure. And I'm actually growing a tomatillo plant just from that liquid structure without the organic material. So I'm trying to separate that to see if it's possible that we can grow plants in more of an isolated kind of commercial based system that you could use in big cities or urban settings. You could even use this system if you have self-contained unit on places off planet. So if eventually Elon Musk wants to do something where he's growing plants organically off this planet, a hydroponic system using this type of method of using these microbes that can handle pretty harsh environments would be the way to do it, to still produce the best possible nutrients we can, whether it's on Earth or not, using the same recycled method.
Awesome. And this will be a shout out as well for everybody in the Premier Resilience community. I'm going to post this video afterwards. And if you guys want your soil sample tested, we'll connect with Kevin on that. And
Sure.
We can do live next time we have you on, Kevin. So
yeah, we have a network in Colorado of students that I'm actually talking with them on Monday. And so a few of them are already the certified lab techs. And so if we have quite a few, then we can kind of go over all those. They do offer their services there as well, but we definitely want to get some in just to take a look and get some samples. So we'll connect with Stefano's network and see, maybe do some kind of lottery or something that we can get some people's sale samples, and maybe they're having specific issues and we can do some consultation with.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that's a plus. And I'm not going to cheat the lottery system, but it'd be awesome to look in my garden. Sweet. Well, thank you so much, Kevin. Thanks for finishing this segment up, and We'll see you on the next one. And thank you, everybody.
Sounds good. Thanks.